Lesson 2-1, Writing Equations. When we're writing equations, there's a few things that we need to do in order to make sure that we're using all the information and we're using it appropriately and we're not adding in extra words or extra things that can confuse us. So you first want to identify the unknown. And when we identify an unknown, we usually represent it with a variable. So A, B, C, etc. Be careful with the variables that you use. Some variables can look like numbers. So for example, an L can look a lot like a 1. So you really want to be careful in what you're using and how you're using them. Next, you want to write the sentence as an equation. So you want to write out whatever is happening using the numbers, identifying words that are important that tell you what operation is being used, and then lastly, you want to look for those key words, things such as is, or is much as, or is the same as, or is identical to. Those tell you where an equal sign goes. So usually you're able to identify the variable, the operation, but sometimes it can be a little bit trickier to identify the equal sign. Pause the video to translate each sentence into an equation. 7 times a number squared is 5 times the difference of k and m. So you want to identify things that are important. So we have 7 times, so 7 times a number. So a number is usually represented by a variable, so we'll just use b. Number squared is, and there's the is to tell you there's an equal sign here, so is 5 times the difference of k and m. Difference is subtraction, so k and m, and 5 times that. So we would have 7b squared equals 5km. 15 times a number, so there's our variable, subtracted from 80 is 25. So 15 times a number subtracted. So we got to make sure that we represent that variable with a number, or that a number with a variable, sorry. So let's just use v. And then it says subtracted from. So coming from something, the 80 would go in front, is 25. So for this one, you have 80 minus 15 times v equals 25. So the next thing we're going to look at is how to write formulas. And with this, you want to assign variables and then place the equal sign. And so this is a little bit different than last time because we may have multiple variables in one example. So the example, the area of a triangle. So let's just represent area with A, because that's typically how we see area. Equals the product, which is multiplication, of 1/2 the length of the base and the height. So for length of the base, let's represent it with B, and the height. And so it would look like this. This is 1/2 of the product, because we have our multiplication with the parentheses, the length of the base and the height. Pause the video to try the example below. Translate the sentence into a formula. In a right triangle, square of the measure of the hypotenuse C is equal to the sum of the square of the measures of the legs A and B. So A and B, and sum is addition. So now we just have to add in the squares. So C squared, B squared, and A squared. So C squared equals A squared plus B squared is how you find the hypotenuse of the triangle. Translating equations into sentences. So when we have an equation, you replace the numbers and the signs with the words. So for example, we have 6s minus 15 equals 45. So we just replaced the 6 with the word 6. And anytime that we have a number next to a variable, we know that means times. And I actually, accidentally swapped the s and the z, but you can just say s here, or you could just say a variable. And then minus 15 equals, I just use the word equals, 45. There's many different ways that you can write these equations in word sentences. Everybody's is going to be different. Some people may just say a number, whereas others may say the actual variable. Some may say equal to, some may say is. It's kind of a universal system. Everybody's can be a little bit different, but they all mean the same thing. So pause the video to try the examples below. What you're doing here is you are taking these equations and you're putting them in word form. On this slide, you're taking the words and you're translating them into the equation. So you're not actually solving on either one of these slides during this lesson review.